life, how can they serve up something that they don't have, that isn't in them? You see what I'm saying? There's no darkness in God. How does he serve it up? There's no death in God. How does he serve it up? Right? And so, yeah, I mean, a couple of things. The first thing the devil did, the way the devil gets people to trust in their own works, which is to adopt his way of living, is by first maligning God. Right? He first maligned God to Eve. No. God is not as he ought to be as Father. He's holding out on you. He's held something back from you that you need in order to have life and God likeness. Right? He's not on the up and up. He's a bit corrupt. Right? He's kind of thinking of himself. Right? He doesn't want to share all that he is and has in himself with you. He wants to give you a little bit and then keep you lacking. Right? But you possess the ability to attain to life and God likeness. Right? Apart from him. And so he first comes to malign the character of God. So whatever you know about the serpent is he's going to be trying to malign the character of God. And he's not going to be content to malign the character of God through unbelievers. Right? He's going to want to malign the character of God through people who profess God. Do you see what I'm saying? Because then it will seemingly carry the most weight. Because here comes the witnesses, quote unquote, of God, and they're speaking about God as if he dwells in darkness, as if he dwells in death, as if he dwells in fear, as if he dwells in torment. Right? And if you can paint a picture of God that way, that kind of a picture doesn't possess the power to put a person to rest. It doesn't possess the power to persuade a person that this guy will care for their life, that this guy will only ever be good to them, that this guy will never harm them, that this guy will only ever uphold them, right? That he'll only ever give all that he is and all that he has to them, right? It doesn't possess that picture. Right? It's like my dad has every tool in the whole world. Every tool in the whole world. Right? And my dad loves his tools. And it's like, I don't even think twice about it. I just show up at the house and like commandeer the tools. Right? But imagine I knew something about my dad to where he doesn't want to let anybody use his tools. And they're his tools. And he's stingy with his tools. And he might come and show you what tool you need, but then you got to go buy the tool yourself. Right? Now, what would that communicate to me in the day that I find myself at home thinking I need this or that tool? Do you think I'm going to my dad's house to get a tool? No. Do you think I'm even going there to find out what tool I need? No, because it's already like a scary kind of a thing. This guy's bothered by people. I don't even want to bring up his tools. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to go try and figure it out myself and then get the tool that I need for myself. Right? And so that's the devil wants to paint a picture of God that is so malign that the human heart can't trust in him, even if it wants to. Right? You can't trust in somebody by choice. I hate to break it to you. I know we have all this talk about choose this, choose that. No, you can't choose this or choose that. The human heart is designed in a way that it can only be put to rest by a certain kind of a thing. It can't decide to rest. And if you think you can decide to rest and you try to work rest, you're walking after the flesh tail. I know the first 5 years of my life in grace from 95 to 2000 was spent trying to work rest. And I found that I was actually walking after the flesh while trying to rest. Right? And so the human heart cannot choose to trust. It can't make a decision to trust. All it can do is be persuaded and believe. Right? And that's what Satan wants to prevent from happening. He doesn't want you resting in God. And so he's going to speak a word about God in the earth that will keep people from being able to rest in God even if they want to. Right? And so he's crafty at that. But the correction thing, just to connect to what we talked about last week with the parents. Right? Hebrews said, the author of Hebrews talking about how God corrects us. Disciplines us. Right? Now people come up with their own conclusions about that, and they normally come up with their conclusions born from their earthly picture of how a father corrects. It just so happens that the author of Hebrews goes into that. Right? It says that we've had fathers after the flesh who corrected and disciplined us. It even goes on to say, to some extent, even if what was in their heart to begin with about our lives was pure, to some extent the correction they divvied out was for their own good. Yeah. It was for their own selves. Right. And you kind of spoke to that. Yeah. Even when in your heart you're actually desiring something good for their life, you behave like an ass. Right. Because it's difficult for an earthly father to not be impacted by fear or worry, shame, the feeling of I'm not respected or disrespected. So they could sit initially with the pure thought when they're correcting, but then they're pressed in on by all those things. And then correction becomes from the standpoint of, I got to get my child to behave right so I'm not ashamed of them in public. I got to get my child to behave right lest the other people in the community think there's something wrong with me because of how my child acts. I got to keep my child from doing this because I'm so afraid of what will happen to them if I don't. I'm so worried. Do you see all the... See, correction becomes like that. And guys, I just want to put it this way. That's correcting from a selfish perspective. You're disciplining and correcting for your own good. What you're doing is trying to correct from the perspective of bringing yourself peace. You're being subverted by what you see there, and your correction becomes born from trying to alleviate the subversion you feel. There's no shame in that. God understands that, right? That's why He's taken on the correction and discipline upon Himself, right? And so that's not to convince anybody they should feel ashamed. But the author of Hebrews goes on to say something profound that we just gloss over. He says, but God, when He corrects, doesn't correct for His own good. He corrects for our good. Now, we've kind of looked at the gospel from the perspective as if God come to correct our bad behavior. Because He's so moved with aggravation by our bad behavior that He now needs to fix it. And so what we've done is we've made God out to be the most selfish guy that ever existed.
As if it's making Him look bad.
Right. Right. As if He's doing it for Himself. Right? But God's not busy thinking that He wants you to have love and not hatred so that He can feel better about you. Or so that He can feel better about what people think of you. Or so that people can believe you are as you ought to be. That's not what He's thinking of. He's busy, when He thinks of seeing one of His kids full of hatred and not love, He's not thinking about correcting that hatred from selfish reasons. He's only thinking of, it's very nice to feel love. And He's thinking of how nice He feels, that He's always feeling love. Even with those that hate Him. And then He's feeling how unnice it is to be filled with hatred. And how that's a life of torment. How that's a life of suffering and pain. And so all of His correction or discipline would be from the perspective of correcting the persuasion in our hearts so that we could experience love and not hatred. It's not self-serving for Him.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What we've done is we preach the gospel from the perspective we've got to slap people around about their sin. And the reason we're going to slap them around about their works of the flesh is because that's what God would want us to do. Because God, when He looks upon us behaving that way, is very unhappy and dissatisfied with us because of our bad behavior. The hell He is. That would make Him someone correcting other people for His own good.
Right.
He's not dissatisfied with us. He's not angry with us. He's not sitting around thinking, I wish they would behave right. All He's sitting around thinking is how wonderful it is to feel my love. And He created us from the foundation to know His love. And now He sees that our bellies are filled with hatred. And we're all our days intimate with hatred. And He's grieved, good grief. He's grieved in His heart over the suffering we're experiencing at the hands of hatred. He doesn't look at us and think we're bad boys and girls because we're filled with hatred. He looks at us and He feels sorrow in His heart over on account of the fact that He sees hatred is causing us to suffer. Right? He's not busy thinking about how He's suffering because of our bad behavior and He's got to fix it. Right?
One of